and what stood out in your mind? What stayed with you from last week's class? Who's gonna go first?
Good afternoon, everyone. I think I'm going to take a shot at it first.
Sure.
Um, so one of the things that basically stood out with me is the personal mastery thing. Now, judging from what I could remember, is basically having the responsibility or taking the responsibility or initiative for your own personal development now, and hence the reason why I'm actually doing this course.
Okay.
And one of the other thing is being able to know where you are at the present stage and where you want to go. And I think so far this class has done great justification so far in pushing the direction in my mind as to where it is I want to go.
Well,
Because
that's excellent.
the position that I hold in the company that I work for, this course is actually so far what I've actually picked up on is actually changing the dynamics of how I interpret what I do and how I execute what I do. And I think it's great so far.
Well, let's hope we keep to that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
will. I will do my best not to disappoint you.
I will also try my best not to disappoint you myself.
Right, right. Good.
But
Well, I'm very happy to hear those kind of positive remarks this early in the course. So that is very tangible, and I like that. I like the fact that you are seeing results already. So thanks for that, Vikram.
props.
Yeah. Who's next? Who wanna go next?
I will go next.
Sure.
So last Monday, I one of the things that stood out to me is that you'll be a natural leader once you can set vision for yourself personally as part of your personal mastery, right? Once you set a vision and a goal for yourself and you work on it, even if it's towards going up in management
Mhm.
of the corporate ladder at work, that you will grab the attention of people and inspire people below you and above you to know that you're standing on business, that you set objectives and goals, you accomplish it, and your deliverables are good. That's what stood out for me from last Monday. And I, to be honest, as my colleagues just said, that's the reason why I took this course as well. Because one of the things, I don't like to waste my words. I said I'm going to do something. I'm going to show you that I did.
Excellent. Excellent. That's good. Just to emphasize what you said, the what you get out of not just your work but life is what you put into it, and put in as much as you want to get out of it. You know, don't expect to put in little and get much. you know the truth is, the hallmark or the characteristic of great leaders are always that, they have a clear vision of what it is they want to do, what they want to achieve. And once they recognize that, they put everything, towards that, in looking to make that happen. By the way, how many of you checked out that video I posted on the WhatsApp group with Dana White?
I did.
So I didn't get time to do it
I
yet.
did.
Yeah, check it out. It's not long. It's a very short video, but it's very, very powerful. Yeah, I mean, it's so simple and yet so powerful. So, those of you who haven't checked it out as yet, please do. Um, and look at it until you understand what is being said. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's continue with the recap. What stood out in your mind? We've heard from Alicia. We've heard from Vikram.
Hi, it's Deborah. I'll go next.
Hey, Deb.
So similar to Vikram, the art of personal mastery stood out to me as well, with
Mhm.
particular reference to how the forces around you, the more you strive for excellence, is how more difficult the journey becomes.
Mhm.
Also, what stood out to me was the multiple intelligences that you spoke about, the existential, kinesthetic, spatial, and social. And based on what you said, I can see where my um, intelligences are coming out of the descriptions that you got. So that was what stood out for me.
Right, right. And I'm happy to hear that because I also posted just a short while ago one of the multiple intelligences tests. It's in the form of a Excel spreadsheet, but it's interactive. Once you answer the questions and so on, there's a scoring that takes place. Check it out. If you have any problems with it, let me know. Um, Thanks, Alicia, for the reminder as well. That's Alicia McDonald. Thank you very much for that reminder. So I hope that you'll make use of that. And as I said in the WhatsApp, try not to do it during the class, okay? That's for afterwards. All right, because it is truly interesting and it will reveal a lot to you about yourself. Okay. All right, who's next on what stood out in your mind about last week?
I'll go next. It's Dominique. Hi, good evening, everyone. Well, for me, the part that actually not just stood out but resonated with me was the part whereby you said you have to have a vision, and not just having a vision, but setting a timeline to what you need to get done and work towards it. For
Mm.
me, I've been talking about getting into business, wanting to be an entrepreneur XYZ for a very long time, and I must say this class is what pushed me to actually get it started within this week. I was actually able to list a timeline as to when I want to see it completed. I was able to go ahead and have my Facebook business page created. I was able to set certain goals to get it done. And due to having that done, I was actually able to start even getting more customers than before.
Wonderful.
So it's really impacting, and that resonated with me and for me now I'm actually seeing progress, because before I was thinking, man, yes, I want to think, but I'm not moving. But now that I've listed everything and I start working towards it, actually putting in that work, I'm getting a better results and even a better vibes when it comes to that. So definitely. And with the video that you post, that was like confirmation to what I'm actually dealing with. So it
I
was
was thinking
very
that as you
impacting.
were talking, I was thinking that. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. I'm glad to see that you are getting results in so short a time, and it just goes to show, sometimes you don't have to do a lot, but doing one thing could give you, such impetus to make the other things happen, and sometimes it's just asking yourself, what is the one thing that's keeping me back? What is the one thing I'm procrastinating on? That I'm dilly dallying on? What is that one thing that I know if I did it, if I got it done, it would just thrust me, you know, um, maybe days or weeks, or some people even months and years ahead of where you are. You see, that's how life is. Life is, in these little choices, these pivotal decisions that, we delay and procrastinate on, but if we put some time and energy into it, it just changes things. Sometimes it changes our direction. Sometimes it causes us to pick up some momentum, and we see things differently. We see things starting to happen, and you get belief in yourself. You get belief in what it is you're going after. So, as a means of helping you all, I want to ask um, um, I want to ask you to do something for me, but it's not for me, it's actually for you. All right. It's in the form of assignment, but I'm going to send it to you at the end of the class. Right. But just to kind of tell you, it's just to help you with, your vision and so on. Okay. I want you to write a 500-word essay, which is basically like one page. Yeah. It's about 500 words. And you're writing the essay on what my ideal life would look like. Okay, what my ideal life would look like. Now, here's the thing. you're writing this essay in the first person present tense. So, in other words, you're writing it as though you're already in your ideal life and you're describing how it looks, not what it will be, not what you'd like it to be, but you're casting your mind forward and putting yourself in that ideal life and you're describing what you see around you. You know, you're describing yourself in that setting, right? So I'm gonna send you an email on that. More likely it's gonna be very late tonight when I get all my stuff out of the way, you know. So you could look out for it tomorrow morning. That is going to be due not for next Monday, but the following Monday. Okay. So don't stress out yourself over it. You're gonna get it in the email, so you'll know exactly what it is you'll have to do. All right. And like I said, this exercise is actually to help you see yourself. It's the kind of give you an X-ray of where your position or where you are positioned relative to where you want to go. Okay, it's gonna tell you whether that vision of where you want to go is clear, or it's a bit blurry, or it's fuzzy, or the picture hasn't even started to gel as yet. Okay, it's a tool really to help you. All right, so um, I will talk more about that to you after I send it out. And if after I send it out you have any questions on it, you want to get clarity on anything, you'll feel free to WhatsApp me or email me or even to give me a call. All right. So all right, so that's that. All right. So let's continue. Let me get like two other people as we do the recap on last week. What else stood out in your mind?
I would like to go.
Mm-hmm.
So what stood out in my mind is the mental models and how, people see things differently or perceive things differently. But what I'm really intrigued by is the two conversations you all were having with Alicia and some other person about the workplace. I can't wait to get to the conflict resolution part of the course. But so far,
Right.
everything is going well.
Okay, good.
Sarah, Alicia and Sarah.
Hi.
Yeah, Sarah, sorry.
Yeah, so those were some very interesting discussions we had. So I'm looking forward to that as well. The conflict resolution. So I guarantee it will give you greater insight and even stir up some more questions. All right, let me get from one more person, and then we'll dive into what we have to cover today. Anybody? By the way, are these recaps helping?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Good, good.
Hi, sir. I'll go next.
Hi,
Um,
Nicolette.
so what stood out to me is while you were telling us, we have to be able to identify like the reasons behind people's behavior.
Hmm.
So, in order to better adopt like a better approach in dealing with the situation itself. So instead of, like sometimes we may be um engaged in a situation where it might be a little hostile and we too might just like be hot headed and, go off and just be, I guess, create more issues rather than trying to solve the problem itself.
Right.
So, that has really helped me in dealing with customers and coworkers as well. I think
Mm,
it really teaches you patience. It
mm,
teaches you to listen to people so that you could really, um, give better feedback and come to like a mutual, decision in terms of how to go about dealing with this situation. rather
That
than making it, like worse, than it is.
yeah.
So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean those comments are very useful because and I just to kind of reiterate what you said, it's very important that we not be reactive. Yeah, and in tense situations and sometimes when you are faced with circumstances that um, it's not that you may not be expecting it, but you certainly may not want it. And who wants to have to deal with adverse customers or adverse co-workers and so on. It always tends to get at you because it takes a bite out of your energy and sometimes your motivation. So people react, to those kind of situations, to those kind of people, um, in different ways. But people react based on their own personality, based on who they are. So some people, when faced with adversity, they sort of get put up a defensive wall. They don't want to get involved in it, and they kind of pull back, try to avoid the whole thing. And we will deal with all those different styles later on when we get to the conflict resolution. Um, but some people, when they deal with those situations, sometimes something rises up inside of them, and there's you know there's an anger that builds up, where you may feel an aggression rising within you, and it kind of pushes you to want to dominate or take control. So um, it's very important that you really understand yourself. And in a short while, we'll also be talking about self-awareness, which will give you a greater insight into that. But suffice it to say, at this point, it's critical when you are a supervisor or a manager that you remain in control of yourself. Vitally important that you remain in control of yourself. Why? Here's the whole psychology behind that. If you are reacting to a situation, and when we say reaction is a sort of reflex response. Yeah. And as I just described, some people have different reflex responses. Some people, want to run away from the situation. Some people want to, charge into the situation. Okay. Um, that may be your natural style of dealing with those situations. But as a supervisor, as a manager, you have to you have to come at it in a very assertive way, and assertive in the sense that you are very much in control of yourself, and you're looking to exert that control over the situation as well. Now, controlling a situation may not mean dominating it. It may mean understanding it so that you know what's going on. Understanding is definitely part of the last response, because you will only adopt an attitude of patience because you've assessed the situation. You have seen somewhat of what is actually happening, and adding further emotional energy to it going to um, is not going to help the situation. Rather, it's probably going to be like pouring fuel on fire. Okay, so she's very right when she said patience. So how do you get that? How do you get that? You have to understand what is taking place within you when you react to a situation. When you react to a situation, it means the emotional energy within the situation is actually connecting with you on an emotional level rather than an intellectual model or an intelligence level. So we've been talking about emotional intelligence, right? So, um, you know, prior to, let's say, 25, 30 years ago, those two terms did not connect the way it does now. When we talk about emotional intelligence, we are talking about intelligence that understands the emotional aspect of the brain, yeah, and we are talking about emotions that are under the control and the understanding of the intellect. So it's a marrying of the emotions and the intellect. When we get to anger and stress management, I'm gonna do a small bit on self-management that's gonna make that a lot clearer what I just said. All right. But suffice it to say now, I'm gonna put it to you this way: as a supervisor, as a manager, you cannot afford to respond to any situation on an emotional level. The moment you react emotionally to a situation, you are no longer in control of the situation. It's going to be very difficult for you to get control of it if you are reacting emotionally. We'll understand all of that later on. But just remember, I said this: you cannot afford to react emotionally to a situation, to a person, or to anything that's happening. Okay, the hallmark of a great supervisor or manager or leader is that you do not get taken in by the emotions of a situation because you're above that. You're above that. Your approach is to understand what is creating the emotional energy and to make sure your emotions don't get caught up into it. Okay? Now, when you take that approach, you're not going to take sides. When you take that approach, you're going to be more objective and more impartial when you're dealing with any situation, which you need to be. Okay? So we'll talk more about those things later. I just wanted to say that, to kind of build on what was said. All right. So the last thing on mental models is where we finished, and that's a very important aspect of emotional intelligence. And it should be a very important component of your supervisory management practice. Okay, because you're never going to be effective in terms of dealing with people, in terms of managing people, in terms of understanding people, which you need to do both of those. Is Yeah, you're never going to be able to do that if you do not apply this principle of mental models. So remember the whole idea behind the practice is that so that you can expose people's emotional models without it being offensive to them, so that they don't get defensive. But you become skillful in helping people to see their own mind, as it were, and to get them to think about their own thoughts. When you do that and you get people to reflect on themselves, you are you're probably doing something that they generally don't do. Certainly not in a disciplined or productive way. I mean, everybody has some sort of introspection, but very few people know how to do it in a constructive way. Yeah. So the idea is you want to lead people by helping them to see themselves better. Now, obviously, if you're going to help them to see themselves, then you have to see themselves in order to show themselves to them. Yeah. And in order to show themselves, in order to see them, as they are, in terms of their mental models, like I said before, you have got to be acquainted with your own mental models. The more aware you are of your mental models, the easier it becomes to see other people's mental models, because the acuity in actually being able to discern these mental models comes from your own willingness and your ability. And we'll come to those two words again in a bit. Willingness and ability to to be honest with yourself, to look at yourself critically, and to do the necessary. Right? No, we invest we invest a lot in people based on relationships. Is that true or false?
True.
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 Right.
True.
So
True.
we tend to go a longer distance if the person, me has, a um certain amount of meaning to us, or the relationship itself has a certain amount of meaning. We tend to be willing to, stretch, to give more of ourselves, to be more tolerant, to be more patient, to take the time to understand, because we are invested. Okay. So very often our willingness to work with people is a reflection of how important we see them, in our lives. Our, our lives, we have different aspects of our lives, for the sake of this class, we may say, well, you have the you that is in the workplace. Yeah. You have the you that is in the workplace. You have the you that is in the home. You have the you that is, when you lime or you associate with your friends, and almost every different environment, that you are in, there is a you, there's a construction of 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 who you are within those different environments that manifests itself in the relationships that you have with the people in those particular environments. Yeah. So, an awareness of the relationships is it does several things. It is a guide as to how important you see this space. Yeah, the workplace. Um, so you will you will know for yourselves, and you will see it in other people in the workplace, that some people have more relationships within the workplace than others. Have you observed that there are some people who are very, they're very connected, they connect with people easily, and then there are others who, they may almost seem aloof or standoffish. Anybody ever notice that?
Yeah, where I work.
Yes.
Right. So
Yeah.
what do you think is the reason for that? Why does that happen?
And
I
some
think
some
that
people, so I believe is that they would have get burned already from people getting too close to people. So that is why
Mhm.
there's be a little standoffish. Other persons and stuff, they would have some people has allow certain things, right?
Mhm.
That is why a lot of people will attune to them, right?
Yeah.
And some people will try and get to know other people and those kind of things. And
Mhm.
that is why they might have a connection with them.
Okay. Is one good and the other bad? How do you look at it?
I agree with Tricia. For me, I to some extent there's a mixture, it depends on it. For me, I'm a very open, friendly person.
Mhm.
However, once I get burned, I am more conservative, withdrawn,
Mhm.
and I cut off relationship based on how I've been handled basically. So what you say is right. Being burned by people will make you act differently and
Yeah.
will make you question people intent when they come and trying to be too friendly to you.
Right. Once a bitten, twice shy kind of thing.
Yeah. Another thing, well, for me, I would usually look at it in a sense of I am not that friendly, but at the same time, due to being in customer service, you have to have a certain level of friendliness. So for me, it's more of a caution for me. I might be on the outside, I might look, I might observe certain things before I get too into being friendly or whatever with you. But I would, due to being in customer service, you have to have a certain amount of friendliness. So for some persons, for me, you might get just the surface friendliness, whereby after observing, etc., you would get a more friendlier person.
Hmm. Okay.
So I agree with all three. I just want to add some people are more introverts and some are more extroverts. So, like, it all depends on your personality, too, I think, as well
Hmm.
as everything else.
Right. So it's not always a result of having been burnt, but it could just be a reflection of background and training. Yeah.
Correct.
Right, right. So, in the workplace, then you're gonna have a hodgepodge of people with different personalities, different backgrounds, different training, different experiences, different levels of exposure. Some people may have grown up being very social, being very interactive, and then others may have grown up very sheltered. Yeah. Um, personality personality has a way of either endearing or alienating you from other people. Okay. It is not always a reflection of performance, or even potential. Yeah. So it's not always a reflection of whether the person can actually deliver. But we as human beings, we tend to mingle those two. You know, we tend to gravitate to or like people who are very friendly, who are very outgoing, who are easy to get along with, easy to talk to, and we tend to you know kind of distance ourselves, not all the time, not but generally speaking, we tend to distance ourselves from people who um who are more loners. They might be introverted, as Alicia's said, or they might be snobbish in that they don't want to mix with any and everybody. One of the things you, as a supervisor or manager, have to do is to really understand the entire makeup of these different individuals and be careful in terms of your intelligence assessment of each person, that you are able to be very objective and very impartial in how you assess people's strengths and weaknesses. Remember, at the end of the day, um, I think I said this before, at the end of the day, your focus has to be the corporate objective. Did we talk about the corporate objective?
No, no, I didn't.
No, no feedback. So I guess
No,
we
it
did.
was just mentioned. We just mentioned it. It wasn't discussed.
Okay, so I may repeat something I've said here, but your goal as a supervisor or manager must always be the corporate objective. Now, while you have a whole bunch of things to do in terms of managing people, making sure operations, go a certain, well, not a certain way, but in the specific way that it's supposed to go. The corporate objective is really tied back to the bottom line. We spoke about that, right? Um, Expenses, revenue minus expenses equals profit, right? We spoke about that, right?
Yes.
Right. So understanding, your team or your department as a business unit and how it delivers, that is very, very important. Okay. In your head, you have to have a philosophy of management. You have to have an approach in your head as to this is my focus. These are the things that I have to ensure that is always managed well. Okay, and the end point of all of that is the achievement of the corporate objective as it pertains to your particular team, your particular department. Now, in the how do you do that? How do you do that is to understand how managing the people and managing the processes together contribute towards achieving that corporate objective. Okay, so the so let me ask a silly question because you've asked it before, but just to emphasize, which is the tougher task, managing the people or managing the processes?
People.
I
So
think people too, managing the
Yeah.
people.
Always the people, always the people. It is easier to troubleshoot a faulty process than a faulty person. Am I speaking the truth?
Correct.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
means you really need to become an expert on the people. Not that you're ignoring the processes, but if you manage the people well, here's the thing, you may even have people to help you with the processes when you manage the people well. Okay? So the whole thing about relationships becomes very important. I was making a point in terms of how invested you are in your relationship. So, I mean, it's easy to think about it in our personal lives, the people who are dear to us, the people who mean a lot to us. We tend to put out a lot for them. We tend to, to weather a lot for the sake of their happiness, for the sake of the relationship, surviving and faring well. We put out a lot, we invest a lot. Okay. Now, how how do we um, translate that that I don't want to call it a methodology, but how do you translate that philosophy that you have in your personal life to what you need to have in your work life? How do you make those relationships meaningful? Now, I kind of we kind of spoke about some things that will help you to understand that, but I'm not going to tell it to you. I want to see if you could remember some of the things we spoke about, and use that to answer this question. How do we make the relationships within the workplace meaningful? The way our
I
putting it.
would I would think by first, because according to first when we started that, according to something that you mentioned, I think this is a very good point can be used, whereby you cause the persons around you as a manager or supervisor, you cause the persons around you to understand what is the vision or what is the goal ahead. And once they can understand it, you're better able to influence them to do XYZ for the task to be completed. So it's basically making them buy into what you need to be accomplished, and you influence them in that way instead of it being in a different like whereby you gotta force them or whatever. Once they can buy into it, and once you can get them to understand, well, this is the process or this is what we're aiming for, everybody is on board, it's way easier to get what needs to be done completed.
Now, how do we do that?
I would like to add to that. One of the things that you mentioned in class is that you try to find out from your employees or your staff what's the purpose of them being there, right? And with that, you can actually assess how if they're willing and able to take up certain tasks if you put it over. And as my colleague just mentioned, you will know how to gauge and influence them to get work done once
Right.
we have mutual understanding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so both of you are on target, and I want to share my screen right now. Um, Hold 1 second. My share screen is now working. Hold on a second. Don't know what happened.
We can see it, sir.
Yeah, you seen it? Shared vision?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Yes.
good. So I want to commend the two of you who responded earlier. You hit the nail on the head. All right. Because the way to get workers invested is you have to get buy-in from them. You have to get buy-in from them. So I asked the question, how do you do that? Okay. And Elisa, you started talking about actually asking pointed questions about why are you here, what are you looking to get out of this, right? So those are very pointed questions, and the whole, that's the whole process really of engaging your team members in the work itself. So this shared vision, this is actually the third learning discipline of Peter Senge. Okay, so remember we spoke about the five learning discipline. Personal mastery is the first one. Mental models is the second. Shared vision is the third one. Okay, so it starts off with what we call telling and selling, and we'll encounter this again later on. Telling and selling. So telling is basically you talking to your team members about what this is about, what we are doing here. This is what we're going to accomplish and so on. As a team, as a company, this is why we do this. So this has to do with information on products and services, not just technical information in terms of specs and so on, but in terms of usefulness, benefits, advantages, to the end users. Um, that's telling people all about what we do. Then you sell. Okay, so the selling is not selling the products and services. You now selling the everything you've told them about. This is selling it to them as individuals. This is where you now have to um, help them connect on a personal level with what they are doing. Okay, don't assume that your workers or your team members know how to do this or can do this on their own. Maybe they can, maybe they can't, but don't make the assumption that they can. You cannot afford to do that. As the leader, as the boss, you are the one who has to point the way as far as this is concerned. So really what you're doing now is you're actually engaging them on a motivational level in terms of what they're doing, why they're doing it, what are the benefits of it, and how those benefits actually accrue to them in terms of personal value. Now, when we get to motivation, which is going to be the third topic, um, so far. But when we get to motivation, we will talk about how you actually connect the things that your workers have to do, how you connect those things with the things that are important to the workers themselves, to the team members themselves on a personal level. All right. Suffice it to say at this point that that's what you will be doing in selling. Now, if you notice, you have telling, selling, and then testing. Okay, after you tell them what they're doing, and this may come in a whole lot of different ways, in terms of, like I said, it could be things like information about the products, but it goes beyond that. It could be training and a whole bunch of things, right? All that's telling. All right. Then you do the selling part. The testing comes after that. And what are you really testing? This is where you're testing to see if you have buy-in. This is where you're testing to see if what you've been telling them and what you've been selling them, they've actually bought into it. They could actually articulate to you that there's some sort of change that has taken place within their minds regarding the work regarding what they're doing, regarding what they're selling, regarding what they're providing. Okay, this is where your insight, your experience will actually be able to discern whether the feedback you're getting is genuine, whether it's believable, whether you've bought into their buying in. In other words, yeah. So when you realize that you have buy-in, you could go on to the next stage. Now, if you notice, the arrow at the bottom says degree of active involvement. So what that is really saying, as you go through this process, they become more involved in the work of the team, in the work of the department, of the division of the company, right? Their involvement increases as a result of what you are doing. Okay. So at the beginning, the dependence is on you for leadership. But as you get buy in, your role changes. Okay. Your role changes because they have now developed a certain amount of um, internal energy, let's say, towards the goals and objectives of the department, and they are now, you know well, they're now looking for direction, for you to point, for you to tell them, okay, what do we need to do? All right. So this is where now your ability to direct and to guide, to help them to develop even more momentum comes in. Okay. So the inertia has been overcome. You overcome the inertia by the telling and the selling. But once you've tested and you've gotten buy-in, you have momentum. So now it's really just a means of guiding, of steering them in the direction, and then providing continued learning for them so that they can build that momentum. Okay. So you now take on a role of consulting. You are there to guide and to help where it's needed. And the more they're able to self-direct based on what has been done before, is the less you need to be involved in the pointing and the direction setting and the guiding, because they have now developed a certain amount of competence and know-how. So you are more working with them now, on the level of being co-creators with them, right? So you are now there more to just sort of provide leadership when it's needed, but they are moving even without you. They're moving even without you, right? So um, this whole process then of shared learning is where you take your team members from perhaps being disengaged and uninterested, through the process of getting focused on what it is you're sharing, and increasing their interest and they buy into it, and then they move on to actually self-managing and self-directing themselves, so that your role changes from testing, from leading them, from telling them, selling them on what it is, and finally getting them to buy in and to drive energy in a particular direction, where all you need to do now is to consult and be co-creators with them. All right. So that's the whole principle behind shared vision. Now, how does how does relationship form a part in this? All of this is happening within the context of relationships. Relationship with them as a team, but also relationship with them as individuals. Because what you will find is, in the telling and selling process, you'll be doing it at two levels. You'll be doing it collectively as a team, but you'll also be doing it individually, because not everybody moves at the same pace. And there's some people you might tell and sell to them, and they buy in and they move. And then there are others you may have to tell and sell for a longer period before they actually buy in. Okay. But you, as a supervisor and as an attentive leader, will understand that and will realize that people don't all move at the same levels. Hold on a second here. Where this thing disappeared to? Right. Sorry about that. Yeah. Yeah. So the the way to engage then is to bring people to this level of buy-in. Now, is everybody gonna buy in? I mean, statistically, no. But this is where your creativity comes in. This is where your own application to the process of leadership, supervisory management, and using all the things that we're going to be talking about in this course. This is where you are actually going to see the results. Okay, 1 second. Sorry about that. My throat is getting unusually dry. Yeah. So yeah. So this is, why is this up? Hold 1 second, please. Just 1 second. I have to kill some pop-ups on my screen. It's getting in the way. Right, good. So yeah, so this thing about shared vision is what we do all the time in relationships, huh? We don't realize it because we don't really think of it, in terms of these steps and so on. But it's almost like courting, when you just meet someone and you know you don't know what their interests are, what your interest is. And I guess this is happening on both ends. There's a telling and a selling, telling about yourself and selling of yourself, and then you kind of check to see what the interest level is, and if there's some sort of buy-in, then your relationship goes to another level, and then because there's an increased communication, increased trust in each other, and in the common direction that the relationship seems to be going in, then you become, you work together for the good of the relationship. So I'm saying that to say that we do this all the time. It's not like it's a new process. We do it all the time. It's just we are not always aware that we are doing this because it's so ingrained within us. It's part of our social DNA kind of thing. So I'm saying that to say that this is not a hard thing to do. You already do it, but you're not realizing that you're doing it on a subconscious level. All right. And by the way, let me just make this point, as I've said, that a lot of the things that we are talking about, a lot of the skills that we're talking about, they are not new skills. They are skills that you already know and practice. Most of them are skills that you already know and practice, but you do it on a subconscious level. You're not aware of it. The whole thing about leadership is the mastery that allows you to tap into the things that you do naturally without thinking and begin doing them by design and purpose. Okay. And I'm saying this to say that, to help you to understand that some people think leaders are born, and then others say that no, leaders are made. And the thing that most leaders will recognize is that there are certain things that drive you as an individual, that makes you want to learn and to apply yourself in learning those specific skills. Okay. It really comes down to, how badly you want it and how is it actually going to serve you. Okay. All right. So, that being said, I want you to understand this. As I said before, there are going to be some great managers and supervisors. Okay, you know, there are some good supervisors and managers, and there are some lousy, some really bad supervisors and managers. Wherever you are along that scale, you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to ask yourself, where do I need to improve? Where do I need to improve? And what is it going to take for me to see those improvements, to see those results in my life? Okay, those are critical questions. Let me tell you why. Some research was done about 20 something. Well, wait, 2024. It was just under 30 years ago. All right, and it was all about personal development. And I first learned about this from John Maxwell. Yeah, he was the one who said this, and he basically said you must know what your strength zone is. Where are you really strong? What are the things that you are strong in? I said also know the things where you are weak in, the things that you're very weak in, that you are absolutely horrible at. He said know those things. He said, some people go to work on their weaknesses, and try to improve themselves, where they're weak. You know what he said? He said, he said, great leaders don't do that. Great leaders focus on their strengths. They focus on their strengths, and they always seek to increase the skill level in their strength zone. Now, the the rationale for that came from the research I'm telling you about. And he said on a scale of 1 to 10, people who applied themselves to improve anything, to work on a skill or to work on something and increase it. He said nobody, regardless of how good they were ever able to increase their skill level by a factor of more than 2. Now, let me explain to you what that means. I probably need to do this as a slide and incorporate it in this training. Let me just make a note of that. I want to do that. Just make a note of that. Yeah, right. Sorry about that. Yeah. So let me explain to you what he meant by this factor of 2. Um, so they ask you to rate yourself in terms of all your different skills. Okay, and good and bad, good and bad. And like if you're bad at something, you're really bad at something, rate it at 0 or 1. If you're bad at something but you're not the worst, rate yourself at anywhere between 2 and 4. Okay. If you're average on something, rate yourself at about 5 or 6. Um, if you're above average, but you're not the best at it, then you want to rate yourself about 7 and 8. And say if you're a genius, if you're really good at something, if you're exceptional, if everybody knows you're excellent in this, rate yourself at 9 or 10. Okay. Now, what they did was they put all of these people, and I can't remember how long the study was for, but all of these people were asked to work on, the different skills, whether they were good skills or bad skills. So it doesn't matter if you were 0, 1, which would be like really bad, or 4, 5, or 9 or 10 or 7 or 8 or what. What they found basically was that even if you were very bad at something and you worked really, really hard at it, you know, and you were able to improve. Most people did not improve beyond a factor of two. So in other words, if there was zero, they got up to two. If they were one, they got up to about three. If they were like four, they got up to six, right? Even with the skills that they were good at. If there was six, they got up to eight. If there were eight, well, then they got up to 10. Okay. So the rationale behind the working on your strengths was this. Okay. If you work on your weaknesses, you're never going to improve it by more than a factor of two. If you work on your strengths, that factor of two translates usually from average to above average, or from above average to excellent. So the thing about it is, what they discovered was the amount of time it took for people to work on skills that they were bad at wasn't any different to the amount of time that people would work would apply to get results in skills that they were good at. So the deduction was that work on the things that you're strong in. Work in the skills that you work on the skills that you already have a certain level of productivity and you get results in, and sharpen those skills. Because if you do that, the chances are you're going to get far better results with that in working on your strengths, you know, than on working on your skills. He said, so what about your weaknesses? John Maxwell said. He said, you know what great leaders do? Great leaders find people who are good in the areas that they're weak in, and they let them deal with that side of it. They don't waste time on the areas that they're weak in. All right. So I'm saying all of this to say that you know we could end up wasting a lot of time on things that are not going to give us great results. Okay, not that you're not going to get results, but they're not going to be great results. They're not going to be results that are going to give you the 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 greatest long-term results. Yeah. So um it is something that we always need to be asking ourselves, what is it that I'm really good in? And that's I shared that video from with Dana White on that. He says, it's, figure out who you are and what it is that you want to do. And when you understand that and you apply yourself to that, your life changes phenomenally. The truth is, most people are not told that. Most people are not told that. A lot of people are not taught that in school. Um, we are taught rather to operate in a paradigm that really tends to keep the majority of people average or below average. Okay, for you to actually function at a higher level, you have got to unplug from the system. Okay, so, well, what do I mean that unplug from the system? Well, you first of all got to recognize where you're feeding, where you're feeding, where is the information that you are operating on a personal level. Where's that information coming from? Is it coming from a credible source? Is it actually giving you the results you want? Now, if it's giving you the results that you want, don't change it. Don't change it, because it means it's working for you. But this is more for people who are questioning, whether what they're doing is working for them. Okay. It's for you to really, ask yourself, you know, am I getting the life I want? Am I doing the things that I want to be doing? Is it serving me? Or is it not serving me? you know um there's a really great I always remember, I studied the Bible and all of that. I always remember Solomon. Solomon supposed to be the wisest king, wisest person who ever lived, and so on. And he said, he looked for happiness in almost every area of life. He had woman, he had wine, he had song. He built orchards. He had exotic animals. He had tons and tons of gold. He had everything, and when he looked at all of it, he said, it's all vanity and vexation of spirit. You know, and I I often say, well, good for him. At least he had the ability to check everything out. It's like he figured it out. I mean, I would I often say, hey, I would like to find out for myself whether that's true or not. So of course that's the immature me speaking. Now the thing is you are following a plan, yeah, whether consciously or unconsciously, you are following a plan. It may not be a plan that you're aware of. Then again, it could be a plan that you're aware of. Maybe you set a plan and you're working by that plan. All right. Um, there are there are a lot of unwritten plans or strategies that we have been fed that is supposed to give us a certain lifestyle. Okay. And what a lot of people now are complaining about is that, these plans don't work, these strategies don't work. So a lot of people are doing what I said, unplugging and trying to figure it out for themselves. Um, so the question is, what is it I'm doing this for? If you cannot figure that out first for yourself, then you can't help your workers or your team members figure it out. Okay, because if there's not enough meaning in what I do, I am not going to invest enough of myself in it. I'm not going to be that engaged worker that is the dream of every supervisor or manager. You know, most times it's gonna just have lackluster performance. Why is it that some people are just so impelled? They perform at such high levels. They come in and they're full of zip and energy, and they do the job, and they they seem happy doing the job. And they're just full of energy, and at the end of the day they don't even look tired. It's like, bye, see you all tomorrow, have a great day or have a great weekend. And it's people asking, well, what is it that he or she has that I have not discovered? What is it that he or she has that I have not discovered? And how do you deal with people that are going through that but saying nothing? How do you do that? Because I have discovered in dealing with people, dealing with workers and so on, um, many of them are just not there. They're there in the workplace, but they're not there. They're disconnected from the job. Some people use their jobs as though it's their little personal kingdom, and they rule it because it's the only thing that gives them meaning. But they don't connect their job with the service they're supposed to give, and their mind they mind their position as though somebody's trying to take it away from them, and yet the people who they're supposed to serve, um, they're shortchanged because it's like a war trying to deal with these people. You know, there is so much of that right now, and I have to deal with it so much. There's so much of it that people are in the workplace are not there. They're in a position and they're not there. They're in service, but they're not giving any, you know? And supervisory management is a very, very tough thing now. And there's this model called the situational leadership model that this guy Paul Hersey out of the Center of Excellence, I think is San Francisco, anyway, in California somewhere. He came up with this concept of the situational leadership model. All right, and it's a framework. It's a framework for you to use in terms of understanding, you know, people and the situation that you're dealing with. But how many of you could identify with what I just described? And you have people under you, that are at that level, and you feel like pulling your hair out sometimes. How many of you have experienced that?
Well, sir, you already know that I deal with that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Just to put add a little, not only persons that are under you, you even have persons that are over you that operates like that. Because I have currently in the job situation that I am in, my supervisor is basically like that.
mhm,
So with all of these sessions that I'm having, I'm trying now, I'm waiting on that conflict resolution part because I don't know how to deal with having all of this knowledge and information now and then having somebody dealing that is over me dealing in that manner. I really
right.
gotta get that part.
Well, I love to keep you in suspense because there's some things we need to cover in order to make that make sense. I would love to deliver it tomorrow, but there's some necessary topics that we have to cover in order to make that totally helpful for you. So I hope you can wait. Yeah, but
I just usually call them Whitney Houston's. And I this and I this and I that and
well,
yeah.
yeah. All right. So well then, give me your insights as we go through this situational leadership model because I think it will add something to those particular situations that we are looking at, right? So this is the situational leadership model. Um, Okay, could we? It's a little early. Could we take our break now? Because when I get it, this is going to be about half an hour to about 40 minutes for us to do this one. I don't want to break it up while we're doing it. So could we take our break now?
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So it's quarter past. So we come back at 25 past.
Sure.
All right. Okay.
Deal.
Good. See you shortly.
Break. Goddamn. Hey, yo, what? Huh? Huh? Yo, what the fuck? Yo, what the fuck?
Okay, guys. So let's get started again. Um, I was just doing some. By the way, you'll hear me?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
we are.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
all right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I was
Welcome
just
back.
thanks, Tanner. Welcome back yourself. Um, yeah. So I was just checking the rule, and I realized I'm seeing some names that I don't have on my rule, and I just want to regularize that before the class finishes and we disappear and I don't get that corrected. So just give me like a couple of minutes just to do that, please.
Sure.
Just stop this here for a minute. Okay, so Yonet, you were with us from the start, from day one.
Yes, sir.
And again, no, yes,
Yes, sir.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. You have any other names besides Yonet? Yonet. I'm not even seeing a Hazel. So you will here. You have
Unit Hazel. I can change mine. Yes, that's not my display name, sir.
okay, but I don't have you on my roll at all. So let me just add you quickly, and you were here for all three classes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks, Yonet. Um, Rhonda, I don't have you either. Rhonda
Good
Simon.
afternoon.
So that,
Yes. No, you wouldn't have me. I only start today.
oh, okay. All right, so that explains that one. All right, so let me put you in right away. Were you added to the WhatsApp group?
No, I wasn't added. I just joined this afternoon because I was getting trouble to get in. So since last week I was to be here, but I only got the link this afternoon.
Okay, so do me a
Mhm.
favor, Yonet, this goes for you too. Could you could you send me your email address
No
and
problem.
your phone number that we could use for WhatsApp?
No problem.
So
No
I'm
problem.
already on the WhatsApp group.
Yonet, so
I was
you on the
added.
WhatsApp group?
Yes, I am. And also my email, I receive all the emails that sent out, and I can download all the other stuff from class, from the two previous class.
That means you were added to the share drive then.
Yes, yeah.
All right. Okay. Let me see anybody else. Comment. Right, Colette is here. I saw Basil earlier. Right, thanks, Rhonda. I got that. Basil, were you
Welcome.
were you here last week? Because I didn't mark you present. That may be my error if you were here. Could you just confirm that you were here last week? Basil? Hi. Were you here last week? Oh, so you weren't here. Okay, all right. Okay, all right, cool. Thanks for that update. All right, so I think that covers it. Mark, I have Mark. Mark Griffith. All right, there it is. Yeah, I got you. All right. All right, I think that covers everyone. Okay, so everybody has access to the shared drive. Yeah. So you've seen the course material as well as the uploaded videos. Is anybody who does not have that, let me know now.
Well, I have to get it, so
All right.
I
So it's
haven't
just
gotten the information. I think I have information, but I don't see the videos. And then I will have to get the notes from last week because I think you will have start notes. I do have the notes for last week also.
well, you would take notes. What we provide
Yeah.
is
Mm.
workbooks,
Okay, no problem.
right? So that is on the shared folder. Um,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, good. All right. Thanks so much, guys. I just want to make sure that um
Access to everything except what you sent in the group on Wednesday. I'm not getting access to that.
yes, Joanna, you WhatsApp me on that.
Yeah.
Um Remind me again of what that is.
Um, it's a PDF file. Um, deeper understanding that many ills in our society, which also manifests.
The letter, sorry,
Yeah.
the paper from the UV paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay, I wrote that down. So I am going to have to see if yeah, did you see what I responded to? I asked if you're getting any error message.
Well, I did it on my phone. I'll try it back on the laptop and see.
Okay. Anybody having any problems with that downloading the paper that I sent?
So,
All right. So Joanna, try it on your laptop, and if you're still having problems, I'll see if I could download it and send it to you another way.
okay, so thanks.
All right, cool. All right, back to our regularly scheduled program. Get this out of the way. Yeah. So so you know what I'm sharing with you during this course is really a lot of different management tools, right? Supervisory management tools. So I'm really just kind of filling your toolbox with different tools that you could pull out, in your management practice to deal with different types of situations. All right. So you could look at them as frameworks through which you could view situations or view people and get a better understanding. All right. So this situational leadership model is one such framework. Okay. And the purpose of this particular framework is to help you to be able to diagnose situations and the people in those situations, right? So, as I said before, it was developed by Paul Hersey out of the California Center for Excellence, okay? And he came up with this model, this leadership model, by looking at two different types of leadership behavior that the leader, must provide, okay? And he broke it up in this way, right? He looked at the amount of direction that a leader gives and the amount of support that a leader gives. So in other words, the two different leadership behaviors is direction and support. Okay, so direction has to do with the amount of direction you give. In other words, telling people or showing people what to do, and everything associated with that, and support in terms of building the relationship. So there's that word again, right? Building the relationships with your workers, okay? And the things that you do within the context of the workplace that allows you to build that workplace relationship. All right. So the idea is that when we talk about the amount, it means that there's going to be varying levels. So it might be more or less direction, it might be more or less support. But how do you determine when to give, how much of this and how much of that? Okay. So what this is saying here is this model is based on the quantity of direction and support that you as a supervisor or manager must provide given the situation, one, and two, the readiness of the employee or team member. Okay, so we'll break that down in a bit. Okay, let's let's break it down in terms of, first of all, the what we mean by the different behaviors. Okay, so we spoke about direction behavior. Okay, task or direction behavior. Okay, now this has to do with the extent or amount to which a leader actually engages in one-way communication. Now, this might kind of sound tricky. I'll explain it a little further. In one-way communication or instruction, by explaining what the employee or team member or follower is to do, as well as when, where, and how the tasks are to be accomplished, and also in monitoring the task to make sure it is done correctly, right? So I'll give you the second one, then I'll come back and explain both of them. Relationship or support behavior is the extent to which the leader, the supervisor, the manager, right, engages in two-way communication, right? So employees could ask questions to clear up anything, all right, by providing support and encouragement to said team members and by empowering them to think on their own. Okay, all right, let's break this down further. All right, so we said it's two different behaviors, right? One is the amount of direction, which is task behavior, and the other one is the amount of support, which is relationship behavior. All right, so as a leader, you're gonna be manifesting these two types of behavior. You're gonna be giving direction. You're gonna be giving support. All right. Giving direction is what Hersey calls task behavior. Giving support is what he calls relationship behavior. Now, these will be varied, said, based on the situation that you're dealing with. All right, and the readiness of the employee. Okay, we'll qualify both situation and readiness in a while. What I want you to understand is that as a supervisor or manager, you're going to be giving varying amounts of direction or support, but what determines the actual amount is the situation that you're dealing with and also the readiness of the employees in the particular situation. Okay, so let's look at what we mean by those behaviors, right? So task or direction behavior is basically you giving directions, right? You saying when, where, and how whatever needs to be done. So you're giving instructions, you're giving directions, you're telling your team members, this is what you have to do, this is how you should do it, this is where you should do it, etc., etc. All right. And it also includes your monitoring or your following up of what you are telling them to do to make sure it was done correctly. All right. Okay. So all of that is task or direction behavior. The other part is completely separate to that, which is where you actually are involved in building the relationship with the employee, with the team member, so that you have a medium upon which to develop a workplace bond, a bond of supervisor to worker, manager to worker, so that um, you can bring out the best in them, and they will also have in you somebody that they can rely on for guidance and direction. So that relationship support behavior is where you engage in two-way. Now, two-way communication simply means that the core of this particular behavior is dialogue. That's all this is saying. It's dialogue, okay? So it is not meant to be me telling you this or you telling me this. No, it's dialogue. So what's the dialogue for? So that they can ask questions or you can ask questions and get responses. It's where they can look for guidance and direction, and you could give them clarification or direction or explanation of something. The whole idea behind that is basically to build them up, to empower them so that they can think on their own. Very, very important. In another place, we will call this self-management. Self-management, right? You want to get them to the point where they manage themselves. Okay, so right, so what is it that we are really looking to do with this particular framework? Okay, it's called the situational leadership model. It is a leadership model that focuses on the situation. Now, what that means is that in any workplace, situations develop and evolve and is affected. Maybe that's not the right word, but it evolves. See, right word. It evolves with a heavy dependence on the people who are involved in it. Okay, so of primary focus here is the persons involved, all right? And the situation is important. You got to understand what the situation is. But the other aspect now is this thing called readiness. You would have noticed that and wonder, well, what does that mean? What is readiness? Okay, so let's just bring this back up here. Right, so here's how we define readiness, okay? Here's what we mean by readiness. So when we talk about the readiness of the employee, the readiness of the staff member, we are talking about these two facets, okay? Ability and willingness, okay? So readiness, the follower's readiness, the employee's readiness is defined as his or her ability and willingness to take responsibility for directing their own behavior. Okay, so that's what I was talking about a short while ago. The goal is self-management, but not everybody is there. Not everybody is there. Okay, so the readiness has to do with an analysis or judgment about the person's ability and willingness to take responsibility for directing their own behavior in that particular situation. Okay? So, as it says there, people are going to have varying degrees of readiness, yeah, depending on task, function, or objective that the leaders are attempting to make happen through their efforts, all right? But why is readiness so important? It frequently determines the level of commitment to the job, the organization, and consequently their performance. So readiness is going to be a key determinant in commitment. It's going to reflect, it's actually going to contribute to the commitment that a particular team member or employee, staff member has to the job and to the organization, all right? And of course, their own performance. Now, here's the thing. Readiness will vary based on what it is you're looking at. So, in the workplace, you're gonna have some people who are very competent in a particular thing. In other words, their ability in that thing is there. Yeah? But they may have something else, same worker that they're not good at. Their ability is not at the same level as on the other thing. Okay? Willingness has to do with their approach, their attitude, their their eagerness. How do they position themselves in relation to what needs to be done? Are they eager or are they not? Are they indifferent? Are they like remember Sarah's um probationary people, right? It's like kind of doing that. Right. So straight unwillingness, right? Straight unwillingness. Okay, so here's where this really gets interesting. Okay. So let me give you a sample scenario. So you're dealing with a situation, all right? You're dealing with a situation where somebody, a particular worker, they have something to do, you know. It's their task, it's their responsibility, um, you know, but they're not doing it. Now, in assessing them, you're looking you're looking at the situation, sorry, you're looking you're looking at the situation, but you're also looking at the particular worker, as it relates to their ability to do what is necessary, what they have to do, and their willingness, okay, to do. What is it? So is it a question of their ability or is it a question of their willingness? So ability is going to be straightforward. You're going to have a pretty good idea, if they're your team members, as to their ability. What is their competence level? Competence. What is their competence level as it relates to this thing? If they have a history of doing it, if you know that they can do it because they have done it, there's data to let you know that they have done this before, then ability is not an issue. It means the issue has to be willingness. Okay? Because if you know somebody can do something but they're not doing it, then the issue that you have to pay attention to is the willingness, because you've already established that they have the ability. Okay, so this framework really asks you to look at people in a particular situation, look at workers within a particular situation within the context of ability and willingness. Or some people might say attitude. Yeah. Is this a competence issue or an ability issue, or is it a willingness issue or an attitude issue? Okay, so let's see how this whole framework develops. Okay, I'll come back and we'll ask some questions. All right, so oops, slide. Right. Yeah. So based on that, okay. So there are two factors. 2 by 2 means 4 possible combinations. So we've simplified it and said so that there are 4 levels of readiness. Somebody could be able or unable, or they could be willing or unwilling. You combine those, you get 4 possible combinations. So the 4 possible combinations can be the person could be unable and unwilling. They could be unable but willing. They could be able but unwilling, or they could be able and willing. All right, these are 4 possible combinations. Now, as we talk about each of those, let's just really go into the back.
Professor,
Yep.
are we supposed to see those slides or?
Are you not seeing the slides?
No, sir. You didn't share anything with us.
All right. Figured something was going on there.
Because your language is referencing items as if we're supposed to be seeing them. So that's why I
Yeah,
asked if we're
you
supposed to be
are
seeing the
supposed to
slides.
be seeing it. I didn't realize that the share stopped. Hold on. What? Tell me what's the last slide you saw? Was it this one?
Still
Sir, we're not seeing anything at this time.
You're still not seeing it. Why is that happening? Hold on.
Correct.
So the
You-
last one that I saw was the shared vision.
oh well, that's
Same
way
here.
back. Yeah, that's the last thing. That was before
Actually, it was the first page on leadership before we go on break.
That's it.
That is really messed up.
Well, as I said, your language was hinting towards us having to visualize what you're saying. So I'm like, wait a minute, but there's nothing on the screen.
I'm only sorry that you took so long to tell me. Hold on.
I mean, I'm visualizing in my head as you go along because you're actually very descriptive. But nevertheless, though, I don't think I'm in the majority in the class.
Ah, okay. I see the problem.
Now seeing.
Thank you, sir.
So you all didn't see this?
That was the last page we
This
saw.
was the last thing we saw.
This was it. You saw this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Alrighty. Let me just go back through it quickly because not everybody is auditory. Some people are very visual. So hold on, I'm gonna have to close some stuff because I think sometimes when these things pop up, the sharing stopped and I'm not even aware of it. So let me just close this here. Close this. Okay, you still have it, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yes,
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, so just to run through quickly, because I think you would have heard a lot, but I just want to make sure you could now pair what I'm saying with what you're seeing. All right, so the situational leadership by Paul Hersey is based on these two different factors: the amount of direction and the amount of support. All right, which are two types of behavior that the leader, supervisor, or manager, right, manifests in dealing with your staff. Okay, so depending on the situation and what we call the readiness of the particular staff member, the amount of direction and the amount of support that's actually manifested by the leader varies. Yeah, the situation determines it, but also what we call the readiness of the staff member is also a factor in the amount of direction that you're going to give as a supervisor or manager, and also the amount of support that you're going to give. All right, so just to further explain, the task direction behavior has to do with giving directions. Basically, is instructing, is telling the staff member what to do, when to do it, where to do it, how it's supposed to be done, and it also includes following up, monitoring, how the staff member actually performs to make sure it's done correctly. Now, we will kind of reiterate this when we get to delegation, but I'm going to leave it here for now. All right. So that's in terms of giving directions. Giving support or providing support, building a relationship with your workers is to facilitate dialogue or two-way communication. Why do you want to have that? Because you want to have a channel through which you can ask the employee questions and the employee can ask you questions. So it is a channel really to build the relationship between the two of you all, and it's also to allow you to provide necessary support and encouragement, the goal of which is really to get them to the point where they can think on their own. This is actually just looking at what we learned in shared vision from another perspective. Yeah, it's the telling and the selling to lead them to the point where they develop that momentum, they buy in and they develop that momentum. So you move from a place of directing and pointing and instructing to consulting, because they become more involved in the actual task and so on. They don't need to be told anymore. They've bought into it, they've learned it, and they can now function on their own. Yeah. So your role becomes less and less the more they begin to be empowered and to think and act on their own, right? So the next slide is where I spoke about the whole idea of getting them to that point, right? So you understand or you define the readiness of the particular staff members by looking at their ability and their willingness to take responsibility for directing their own behavior. But that is always within the context of specific tasks, functions, objectives, projects that you, the supervisor, the manager, is looking to accomplish through their efforts. Why is that important? Because, as I said, it is a manifestation or it is an indicator of the level of commitment that they have towards the job. And even before the job, I would say the tasks that is in front of them, to the job, to the organization, and consequently to their overall performance. So just kind of pull everything together. So this whole thing about ability and willingness is, like I said, a framework through which you view the staff, the team members, as well as the situation, because it allows you to diagnose a particular situation to determine whether this is an issue with the person's ability or their prevailing attitude. People's ability may grow, but it is usually not a point in time thing. Whereas attitude is different. Attitude can be a point in time thing. Somebody's attitude could be good today. Sorry, it could be good now, and 5 minutes later, it's in another place. All right, not just the day for day. It could be moment to moment. All right, so these are things that you need to be aware of. So this framework, what it really does is it presents you a filter through which to diagnose the situation and the worker in the situation. Okay, so based on what we had said before, we're looking at ability and willingness. You have four possible levels of readiness. All right, so somebody can be unable and unwilling, unable but willing, able but unwilling, and able and willing. So what I want you to do just now is to, if you can, think of people within the workplace where you are at, and see if you can identify people at these four levels of readiness. Usually, you can usually pick up, once we do the description, you can pick up people. All right. So the person who is, let's look at the person who is unable and unwilling. Okay. So somebody is unable and unwilling. That means that they don't have the competence, they don't have the ability, but in addition to that, they have a negative attitude. That's unable and unwilling. The person who is unable but willing is a person who does not have competence, but they have a positive attitude towards the job. Yeah. So they might be eager. The kind of person, they want to work, they just don't have the skill to do it. All right. Then you have the person who is able but unwilling. The person who is able but unwilling has demonstrated ability. They may have a history of performance, but for some reason they're unwilling. Could be today, could be this hour, or it could be the whole week. You know, but they're able but unwilling. And then able and willing are usually the go-getters. Those are the people who are very driven. They tend to be the person you would quickly rely on if you have to go out and you want to leave somebody in charge. They're usually the kind of person to do that. All right. So can you think of people within your workplace that fall into these categories?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right. So I want you to keep those people in mind. For this,
Question:
yeah.
can these different level of readiness, right, be let me say based on relationships as well, like in the workplace?
Yes, yes.
Because the
As a matter of fact, that is part of how you determine, what is the problem. And not based on relationships, but affected by relationships.
Yeah, I think the word is influence. Can
yes,
relationships influence these outcomes?
Yeah, yeah. Now
Understood.
the other thing that you need to know is that these levels of readiness are not necessarily characterizations of the people, but rather of their state at a particular point. Okay. Let me explain to you what I mean. Um, we're not talking about general descriptions of people, although it can be, but you don't want to narrow it down to that. Um, well, I shouldn't say narrow it down. You don't want to broadly apply it to that. Um, there are there are people who are going to be unable and unwilling in a particular area, and another area they are able and willing. Is that possible?
Yes, sir.
Right. So therefore, this is a situational leadership model. Yeah, is to help you to diagnose particular situations, because um, it is easy for people to have, for instance, good attitudes in some situations and bad attitudes in other situations. And as Alicia rightly pointed out, it could be influenced by relationship. It could be influenced by sometimes the person who they're working with or who working around them. Those things have very, very powerful impact on some people, so this is where your ability to use the tool is going to be, um, well, a great tool to help you to understand the situation and to deal with it um, more exactly. And the thing about it is, what these frameworks really do is to allow you to cut through a lot of the nonsense. You don't have to beat around the bush with this. When you pull these tools out and apply it to a situation, you get to the core of the problem pretty quickly. And that's the whole thing about it. It's to help you solve problems. First of all, it's to help you to understand problems quickly and then to solve them or resolve them quickly. All right. Okay. Any questions so far? Because we're about to go into where it gets a little exciting in terms of how do you actually use this. Any questions? No?
Um, in terms of building work relationships, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how how can you build a work relationship when you have to give people like file notes or warning letters? I mean, you wouldn't really want. Okay, put it like this way: if somebody give me a warning letter, I wouldn't really want to build a relationship with that person. You will feel a type of way based on
Yeah.
what you get the letter for. So
Ideally, the relationship should be built before that. You know, ideally. Um, it just makes it a little more challenging to do those things because even if you have to give a warning letter suggests that you've spoken to the person, probably more than once. Yeah. What has been the framework for the conversation? How was it conducted? Those are questions to ask yourself because all of that has to do with the relationship behavior. Um, there are good ways to deal with those situations and there are bad ways. What you want to find out is what's the best way to deal with it. Okay. Now I don't sit here for 1 minute pretending that these frameworks are going to work super great for everybody in every situation. I am not telling you that. I always like to tell people this. You see, these frameworks, they are to improve your supervisory management practice. Okay, it's not to make it perfect. What you're looking for is improvement. As was it Brian Tracy? No, Jim Rohn said, practice makes for improvement. Yeah, practice doesn't make perfect; it makes for improvement, and that is what you're looking for. You're looking for improvement. Not everybody wants to improve. Okay.
right.
Yeah.
So here's
Yeah.
my struggle in this area, right?
Mhm.
In my line of work, they told us, well, upper management mostly, don't make friends because it makes your job easier. Sometimes when we have to audit people or audit different departments, a lot of the times when you're friendly with the person, if they're doing something wrong, you tend to be partial. And that really doesn't work for the company. They want somebody who, you know, cutthroat, basically. You
Yeah.
doing
Well,
something wrong, report the person one time.
Alicia, remind me where you are at again.
I'm an auditor.
Well, you don't want to say where. All right. Okay.
I work Furniture Plus.
Where's that?
Furniture Plus.
Okay. All right. So now, if if you are told that by upper management, that is telling you something about the culture of the organization. Does that make sense? So here's the thing. There is an assumption about the employee. There's an assumption about the staff, and that has a lot of implications. So if they're telling you that, they are saying that probably based on the history, the past experience, and it is also saying that there is an acceptable level of loss that they have in mind. And they don't want that being complicated by you becoming friendly. Yeah. Now,
Okay.
let me be, as my sister-in-law loves to say, let me be brutally honest with you. Okay. The workplace in Trinidad, is not a nice place generally speaking, because the quality of the workforce has dropped terribly. Okay,
Correct.
and you know, um, business owners, executives, upper level managers, even middle managers and low managers are faced with the the reality that workers and understand what I mean when I say this. But workers are irredeemable. All right. I'm not implying this in any kind of salvific um, way, any kind of salvific connotation. I'm talking about in terms of performance. Um, the sad thing is, and look, I talk to big business owners, and I've been told point blank, it is not in their interest to invest money to train workers that are not going to be there for very long. Yeah? What does that tell you?
Says a lot.
Yeah, but tell me
It
specifically.
means that the operation wouldn't progress past a certain point because the workforce will keep remaining at a competent level,
Yeah.
and they're just waiting for a miracle to happen.
Yeah.
And even if it happens, will be for a short while because
Who's waiting for
people
America
gonna
to
decide.
happen? Who's When you say they're waiting for America to happen, who do you mean?
Management.
No, they're not expecting miracles, believe me. They're not looking out for miracles either. Um, I can safely tell you this, and you need to be aware of this, because if you're going to be supervisors and managers, you need to understand this. Um, there's a lot of factoring now into business plans of acceptable losses in terms of uh, robbery, in terms of pilfering, in terms of and I'm talking about workers. Talking about by workers. In terms of subpar performance and other things, because there is the knowledge that, and this is statistics, all right? They know that the average turnover time of staff for this particular um, industry or this particular franchise is this. Therefore, they do a whole costing exercise on the length of time this person is going to stay. What is it going to cost them? What are the returns that they're going to get while this person is here? What are the risks that are going to be involved in keeping this person even for this time? Yeah. Um, I'll give you an example. And this is something I was actually involved in, and found out. Um, was working with I'll just say a fast food group. Okay. And we found out, cutting a long mundane story short, we found out that workers workers had discussed, and they were talking, and we got the chatter that they were told that, you know if you get pregnant, go to so and so and get a job, and they would be hired. They would work until, you know some of them right up until, delivery time, um, get the time off, get all the benefits, insurance benefits, and after that, the baby, they would leave. It was an effective means of financing their pregnancy, and it took a while to realize that this was actually a pattern. And when they actually discovered it. Okay. So one of the things that they had to do, anybody coming in now had to take a not a pregnancy test, but they would take tests and so on, where they could determine whether they were pregnant or not. Right. There are a mechanism. There are paradigms of, of living that are out there that you'd be shocked to know, how people think. Um, and if you're a business owner and you are you're thinking that what you're really thinking about is somebody's taking advantage of me as a business owner and getting, 3, sometimes as much as 5 months free pay without me getting, you know um the performance. Okay. Now, I'm just talking strict business. Not talking compassion here or anything, but on a strict business level, that is money lost. Okay, you following me?
Yes, sir.
Right. So
Yes, sir.
I'm saying these are factors business owners think about that you may not be aware of, and
Make it, I know
it
you could just
it
keep your legs straight.
dictates upper management saying something like they said to you, Alicia, that don't become friends because when you take that approach, it becomes a liability because it becomes a point of weakness in the organization that they can be taken advantage of. Yeah. And not only that, it would make the execution of your duty more difficult if you do not have the ability to, fire a friend. Okay. So, you have to be very cool sometimes when it comes to these things. And quite frankly, the challenges in Trinidad now that could even be dangerous for you depending on the quality of the workforce. Yeah, because you could fire somebody and their boyfriend come and Lord knows what happened. I've actually dealt with situations like that. Yes, Priya.
So let me ask, hi sir. So let me
Hi.
ask the question. So I'm not middle management,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but I am a line manager, right? And then we have the executive management on top of me, right? So all my GMs are there.
Mm-hmm.
So that this is why I sit in a structure. And I'm saying that when I came to the department, um, the executive management didn't really put much stock into the department. It wasn't very important to them. So when I came here, I decided to make it known how important this department is. And because of the lack of importance they put in the department, they just threw any old staff, people who needed jobs, they just
Mm-hmm.
threw them in the department. And the department is very technical based. While it's administrative, it's also very technical. So you need a certain amount of training and you need people who understand what they're doing
In
to
order
be in
to
the
be
department,
effective. Yeah.
right? And I feel so I started out from at the lowest point, right, in the organization. Now the organization I'm with is not where I started,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it both are similar sets, right? So I started off at the lowest level and I worked my way up. So I know what kind of manager I don't want to be. And I don't want to be a manager who has no compassion for the employees and understanding that life happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it happened to me and I had to make all sorts of sacrifices, you know? And I watch my coworkers do the same thing just to be
Mm-hmm.
able to come to work, right? So I came here with the intention of changing, a lot of things. And that is that I think that's where my downfall lies, sorry, where I believe that coming to make a better change would have been an issue. And I came here to find that nobody really cares. They hold you, the manager, accountable, but they give you the runt of the litter.
Mm-hmm.
The policies do not support, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the objectives of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I was saying in chat, right? The HR policy says at the end of 6 months, there's a 6 months probation. And at the end of that 6 months, you do an appraisal to decide whether the employee continues the contract.
Right.
But these employees signed a contract on entering the organization for 3 years. And it's not stated that they're,
Mm-hmm.
they could be
How
terminated
is
within
this?
six
How is
months.
this? How's the 6 month stated within the contract? The 6 months probation.
I don't know if it's stated in the contract, to be honest.
That's a problem.
Right. So now I said, well, okay, so we have 6 months probation. So it means that I can, if the employee does not pass muster, I can have them reassigned if you don't want to fire them or, dismiss. You could have them reassigned or, dismiss them. Lo and behold, I was told that I can't get rid of any of them simply because the appraisal was supposed to be done at the 5 month mark. And I'm saying, but this is not what your policy says. It says at the end of 6 months, you can properly evaluate the employee's performance.
Well,
and here I am.
The truth is, if you wait until the end of the 6 months to do the evaluation, you have gone beyond the probation time, and you need to make a judgment at the end of those 6 months. So you can't wait until the 6 months is up then to do the evaluation.
Yeah, but it leaves you no space for corrective measures, right? Because remember they brought in the runs of the letter and gave them a job spec that wasn't actually what their job spec was or is. So when it came into the department, you're
what's the
working from
criteria? What's the performance criteria that they have to live up to? Was that made clear?
No, I don't think so. I don't believe they ever did a organizational introduction. They were hired and told to report to the manager. Right. So I did an introduction to the department, but per se an introduction to the organization, orientation, I should say, that was not done with them. So no clear objectives were outlined. My clear objectives were outlined.
Which was?
For the department. Treat patients nicely. Don't breach confidentiality or I will get you fired. And treat people the way you'd like to be treated when you come here.
So in other words, you didn't have any criteria because that is vague. That's vague.
That is very vague.
And it's not
very vague for what I would have given you, but I do have supporting documents. So their job description was answer the phone, file correspondences, and a whole set of menial things that were not of the job description of what they were hired for.
But okay, so I mean, so there was a job description.
There was a job description, right?
A job description is at least minimal criteria.
It is at least minimal criteria, right? But it is completely different for what they were hired for. And before they did this hiring, I explained to HR, y'all need to change the job description so you can, recruit staff with these qualifications, or staff would understand that this is what they're coming to do. Because I can't do an appraisal and go through the job description with them when the job description and what they're doing is two different things. I can't evaluate your performance because then everybody will be above mark, because what you've been doing and what you've been told to do is two different things.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So you have two standards. You have a written standard which is not enforced, and you have another standard which is more operational. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, we could say that, yeah.
So basically the JD is not really coming into play. It more has to do with them completing the task that they have to do as per the operational plan.
Yes.
All right. Who is in charge, and who first of all, who is responsible for that operational plan, and who is the person that determines whether that has been fulfilled or not?
technically it's me, right? But I hold, so basically I hold 3 job specs under one position. So I have a supervisor who's dedicated to running the operations of the department. So with
Mm-hmm.
this supervisor, what I'm trying to do is, because the organization for the department does not have any success planning, right? So I'm trying to get the people who were there to feel empowered to make their own decisions and to, when I when my contract is over and I don't choose to renew, somebody from the ranks can rise to take the position. That's the intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that supervisor is responsible for the
Hold on,
operation.
hold on. Before you get to that, this supervisor, you said she is a supervisor. She's an operational supervisor.
Yes.
So she is
Who
she.
holds the job description for 2 other people as well
All right,
while
but
running operation.
all right. But what I'm trying to understand is that what's her role in terms of the so she's like an intermediate between you and staff in terms of operations being done. Yeah.
Yes, basically.
All right. What are the other roles that she has?
She has the rules of coding. She has rules of a technician, and she operates as she has something else. I can't. It
Is
kind
she
of just fades me.
is she effective in all of those?
Um,
Or is it
she's
too much?
learning. She's
She's
learning
learning.
freely. Yeah,
So,
because
okay, to
the
what
manager
extent?
previously there,
Oh,
she handled everything else. The manager previously there had a tight
uh,
grasp.
all right, let me. I'm still on the operational supervisor. To
Mhm.
what extent is she actually achieving the operational targets?
So the problems that come to her, she gets them solved,
Uh-huh.
right? But the staffing issues, so they have, they're plain disrespectful.
The
They are
staff.
plain disrespectful. Yes.
Okay, and that's because, as you said, they're quote unquote the runt of the litter. So, in what is it that they're scraping the barrel to fill these positions?
I really don't know, to be very honest. I've never seen a bunch of people who didn't have a job and got a job and just, yeah, whatever. That's basically how it is. Like, yeah, whatever.
Are you in one of these RHs?
Yes.
Okay, talk done. Because all right, um, Priya, let me tell you something. I'm talking to you not as I'm talking to you as a friend. Okay. Um, you see what we spoke about in terms of personal mastery,
Mm-hmm.
having having a vision of where you want to go.
Yep.
That is the most critical thing that you need to define right now. Let me tell you why. So you said what we said about taking responsibility for your own quest for learning, which obviously you are doing, um, taking responsibility for the ability to work with the forces around you. Remember what I said about that? Those
Mm-hmm.
those forces are going to be there despite your best efforts. The only thing that can pull you through that is the power of where you want to go, the power of that vision. See that? That is supremely powerful because you know what I'm hearing from you is a tremendous amount of frustration.
So let me
And
tell you something, sir.
um,
I had 11 strategic goals last year for my 2022-2023 period.
uh,
Without this supervisor running operations to me, I
mhm.
would probably have not been able to achieve the 7, but I did 7 out of the 11.
I could well imagine because I'm realizing that operational supervisor is is like the wall that is keeping the sea from coming in. You know.
So The thing is, I've always said that I do not want to be a supervisor who's not, or a manager who's not understanding, right? So if the employee comes to me and says, so by so is a case, I
Let
give them, you
Priya,
know,
let me refer this to my board of consultants. That's the other people in the class. Let me hear what my other consultants think about this situation and how they are viewing you in this situation and what they would advise you to do. Can I hear from some of my the consultants on my board?
Sure. For me, I don't have a problem with you being sympathetic or wanting to be a good supervisor. But for me, being a supervisor or manager, there's boundary lines. There are tasks that needs to get done and it needs to get done. If you are willing to do XYZ, yes, there's times whereby you would be able to, give a little leeway and say, oh, I'm gonna encourage this person, I'm gonna work with this person, XYZ. Taking into consideration, one, what is the time factor to have this task completed? Secondly, and I kind of understand why is it persons would say you don't become friends, but for me, I don't have a problem being friends with you, but there's a line drawn. We have a task that needs to be completed and it has a time frame in which it needs to be done, because it's business we're dealing with. Reality is money got to be spent. We either gaining or losing. So if you have an employee whereby you have to somehow employee whereby due to whatever reason they're not able to meet their task or so, you gotta wait. Is this something that is always happening? Is it check to see? For me, I would check that individual out, check the record, check to see if it's basically something that is probably just holding them back for this one time. But if it's something that you have to continuously always having to sorry for them or whatever, you'll need to check that. For me, it's basically looking at the individual and the situation at the same time, but at the same time not getting too emotional with it, because you still got to intellectually think as, hey, am I making a loss? Is the company making a loss? Is this right? XYZ. So that's it for me.
All right. Thanks, Dominique. And anybody else? And Priya, do you want to respond to Dominique before anybody else?
sure.
Yeah.
The thing about the RHAs is that we do not see it in dollars and cents, right? Because the government basically funds us. We don't have a restriction on different things. The restriction may be with finance, but in terms of the care that we give, we do not put dollars and cents on it. So while the employee, I don't know if this is the correct thing that I'm saying, but these employees that I'm talking about have only been here for 6 months. So it's not a track record of what they have, or if we're writing them down for different things. But let me give you an example. So last Friday, I was on a vacation day. And when I came at 2 o'clock, my supervisor messaged me. She said, there's nobody to be found in the department besides them. So I sent a message out. Hey guys, where are you? Nobody responded. They were all missing. Nobody was at their station. There was, out of the 25 new people that I got, one person was at their station. The rest of them were gone because clinics had finished early, basic Friday, everything was done early, but it doesn't mean that you get to leave the department, right? And while
The
if you look at that,
what are the parameters in place to determine how you deal with that?
right, so this is the thing. They're all gone. There's no help from HR because they're saying that I need to write the employee, but then I need to speak to the employee. So what I've done, and like I said in chat, what I've done is terminate all courtesies that were extended to the employee. So all instances of time off, all instances of favors, I have to run pickup. So in this organization, This is the only organization that I've worked in where you can go and pick up your child and do return to work. You could leave at 3 and do return to work. In Trinidad, you don't get to do that. That child have to stay there till the time you're ready to leave. If you have to bring your child back to work or somebody, you have to make an arrangement for your child. Right? Here, it's very different. The culture that's perpetuated is that is here is that, yeah, we gotta allow your time to go and come back. You know, this is the culture that I met.
Yeah, yeah.
And while I said, you know what, this is not something that I'm accustomed to, when I spoke to upper management, I was told, you know, I can't change the culture and I have to find ways to, you know, incorporate whatever
She
changes
right?
I have to make.
Is she right
But
or
at the
wrong?
same time,
Priya?
sorry.
Yeah, is she right or wrong in stating that they can't change the culture?
Changing the culture is frustrating and it stresses me. So she's right and wrong at the same time because it's unacceptable behavior, right? But
how is she right and
thinking
how
about the
is she
toll that
wrong?
it takes on me personally.
Priya, how is she
So
right
she's
and how
right,
is she wrong?
right, because the toll that it takes on me personally to change the culture, to fight that wall, that Great Wall of China, is difficult. So she's
But that's
right in
not
that
an
I
answer.
can't fight culture.
That's not an answer to the question. The question is a straight objective one. Can the culture be changed? That's a yes or
That's left to be seen.
yeah, you're avoiding answering the question. You know what that means?
That's left to be seen. I do not believe, personally, I do not believe the culture can be changed. It's perpetuate. It's from top come down. So
Yeah.
everybody's entitled. Everybody feels entitled to something.
If I could just say, I was just about to say that I don't think it can be changed because most times for me, at least in my experiences, whereby I was at a company whereby they have a lot of practices that are not really work ethics practices that should be done. And if you are just the only person that see that, hey, this is wrong, and persons in management there is not seeing it as wrong because of different reasons, most for at my end it was mostly because it was family and friends that were there and nobody was able to correct anybody because we are all drinking partners, we are all family, etc. So they were given the leeway to do whatever they want to do. And because of that, for me, I took myself out of the equation because I realized that me trying to make a difference is like me taking on I as the only person or the sea in the middle of the ocean trying to calm the storm, and that's not something that I could have done myself alone. It needed basically because even to the structure in which the writing of the laws that wasn't implemented, and it wasn't like if there were writings and implementation, maybe it could have. You could have referred back to say, well, XYZ is the policy of the company XYZ. But if it's not there and it's not being implemented, it's like if it's you taking on something that you can deal with.
Okay, so Priya, let me basically tell you this, all right? You ever heard of Peter Drucker? All right,
No.
Okay, so Peter Drucker was one of the foremost business educators of the last century. Actually, I think he only passed away somewhere between 2009 and 2012. Prolific writer in terms of business education. And one of the things that Peter Drucker said is do not go into an organization with the expectation that you will change the culture because the culture is set at levels that you cannot access. And that is, it is, I've seen too many people in just in this course alone since 2011 who either have not understood that they didn't know it or they refuse to accept it and have really made their work experience a very frustrating one. One of the things that I usually tell this class from early on. I don't think I told you all this, but it's this is you have to make a very quick assessment about what your limitations are within the workplace. Um, and there are limitations. And you have to assess that very quickly because there are changes that you can make and there are changes that you cannot make despite your best efforts, regardless of how long you try. And you've got to be aware of that. All right. Changing the culture of an organization, you cannot change the culture of an organization unless you own the organization. Because that's the only time you will have the the power
The
to
leverage.
implement that change. All right. So um you know the
One of these days, sir,
yeah, go ahead.
one of these days, I will explain to you. I will explain to you my integration into this organization,
Yeah.
and I should have run when I was told. When I came in, I should have gone. I should have been like, no, I don't want to do this, and go back home. But to be very honest, I came I came here thinking that it was better than where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came, the culture shock was huge because it wasn't better. It was way back. It's a few years behind what I was accustomed to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had to readjust my thinking to be like, oh, okay, I have to start from scratch.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I started from scratch again and I started building and
I,
I built and then
I don't know where you came from, but I mean I'm just assessing based on what I hear from you, and you are basically a very compassionate person, but you have very high expectations of people, um, and
I have very
you're in
high
the wrong
expectations of
environment. Huh?
I have very high expectations of myself, to be very honest. Because
Yeah,
I did
but you're in the
certain
wrong
strategic
environment,
goals. I did those goals by myself. Because if I had waited for a help, it wasn't coming,
right?
right? So I basically work 80-hour weeks, you know, and I didn't do that for the organization. I'll be very honest. I
Hmm.
did not do that for the organization. I did that for myself
Right.
because I need to feel that you know, I'm achieving something, that I'm not just here, just
Mhm.
wasting time.
Okay, but be careful that you're not adjusting your expectations downward because of the environment that you're in, because environments have a way of shaping us and beginning to what's the word, to shrink our our achievable um, targets. I mean, because we may have huge potential, but if you're not in the right environment, it's going to be very very difficult, and it's one of the challenges that we all face in terms of what is the best possible environment for me to fulfill my personal and professional goals. Um, that's a difficult thing, first of all, to ascertain. But even after you ascertain it, it's it's not easy to find, you know. But life
I'll
being
be
what it is. Sorry.
honest, I'm at the point where I am willing to give up my gratuity money. I'm willing to give up whatever benefits I would have here
Mhm.
and just go back to being occupying the lower position that I'm permanently employed in. Go back to being that. Just going back to being a line manager. Sorry, a line supervisor.
Mhm.
Simply because, you know, if I can, now my gratuity is a lot, I'm not going to say how much, but if I could turn my back on that money and just go, you would understand how I feel currently.
Mhm.
I'm not
How
certain.
long before you're entitled to that gratuity?
I have a year again on my contract,
No,
and
write it out. Write it out.
nah,
Write it out. Let me tell you something. Um, and I tell you, I'm not telling you that because of the discussion. I'm telling you that because of where we are at economically. There are a lot of changes coming that people are not being told about. And that year will pass fast, believe me. It will pass fast. What you need to do, listen what I'm telling you, what you need to do is go back to that exercise I spoke about, because um, the the thing that drives you is most important. And you've got to focus. You got to find it, you got to focus it, and you got to make it so much bigger than what you're dealing with. Because the bottom line is, um let me just use this experience, this little transcript from the book of Hebrews, where it talks about Moses. um the scripture says of Moses, he endured affliction for a while, as by seeing him who is invisible. I want to take that to apply it to this. The only way you could endure adversity is you have to have something that's bigger than the adversity pulling you forward, driving you forward. There's got to be something bigger, greater, grander. You know, it also says of him, you know, he chose to endure affliction with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. There are all sorts of choices that we make, right? But we've got to know, what is it that we are doing all of it for? It cannot be for the comfort, because comfort doesn't last. You know, you always think that where you are is the worst possible situation until you get to somewhere else and realize that it's worse. And by the way, remember, you said that you thought that you were moving to a better place, and you went from the frying pan into the fire. Yeah. So I want you to think about that a bit, and I'd I'd really, be happy to work with you on this, on if you wish, if you so desire, to kind of help you flesh that out, because you need to not. Let me tell you something. Don't give up that gratuity for the sake of people giving it.
So,
Yes,
may I
Sarah.
say something? Right. So, with regards to that same thing with gratuity, what Sir is saying, he is right, and I was also in a similar situation like that. I believe that was in 2016, where I was working um a traffic warden, and there it's the contract were also 3 years. And at that point in time, I was transferred from one base to another, and like traveling and all those things, it was, and the workload also with the traveling and having to deal with the seniors and all of that, it was really, really difficult the same way. And I would tell you that the only thing had me holding on was my gratuity. I'm being very honest. I had every reason to leave the job. I was unhappy the same way. But let me tell you something. I collected my gratuity like about 2 or 3 years ago. And trust me, when you get your gratuity, you'll be happy you stayed on and waited for it, because that's your money. That's what you work for.
You work for
So
it,
why
exactly.
give it away?
Yeah.
It comes in handy. Trust me. Don't give up your gratuity. Just stick it out until better will come. It always gets better.
Yeah, and
Thanks for
when
the encouragement. But so
yeah,
maybe we can have a conversation and fully explain this to you without the class present.
I'll
Maybe
I'll
we
be
can have a
happy
conversation.
to. I'll be happy to. Yeah. I'm getting the impression there's more than what you're telling me, so that's why I kind of threw it out. Yeah. But look, I like all these real stories, to be honest with you, because the 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 tools are just that, tools. You know, um, they don't work in every situation. They work in most situations, but there are situations such as you all are describing, such as have been described by we had some discussions last week as well, Um, it's those are the things that really test you. And I I'm I don't like to lie to people. The If you're in a situation that's really testing you, and um have you groaning inside, and when you go home, all you could do sometimes in the middle of the night is cry and ask why me, kind of thing. There's the only thing that takes you beyond those things is you have to have, I mean, I don't want to be cliche, but you have to have a, a strong, compelling vision. Okay. It is difficult. I told you, I like to be honest with people. It is difficult when you're in the workplace to imagine that having a strong, compelling vision could take you above and beyond, the situation you are in. Okay. But take it from me and the many other people who have been through this, through all sorts of situations, you know, it always looks like there is nothing better, but there's always better things. I sure Sarah tell you this, but I sure that gratuity helped her with starting up your business. Am I right or wrong?
So my business was already started at that point in time, but when I got my gratuity, it was a
Tell
lot,
her,
and I was really thankful that I'm using my gratuity to travel and have a good time now. So
you go,
yeah,
girl.
my trip already planned with that gratuity money. Thank
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Well, so I was wrong, but I was wrong in a good way. So the point I want to make is this: as a coach, I'm gonna share this with you. As a coach, I deal with people in all sorts of problems: marital problems, financial problems, health crises, family issues, family problems. You wouldn't believe some of the kind of problems that people have. And you know what I've discovered? I've discovered that, a lot of times people go headlong into problems, seeing seeing the red flags, but just believing, it would work out for them. Just believing somehow, that this is not going to be as bad as it looks. I could deal with this, etc., etc., etc. Conversely, some of these same people, I've seen them so locked into the situation that they're in that they don't realize that there's a way out, and they just need to do certain things, and big changes could happen. Okay. I'm saying that to say this. The only strong force that I know and that I've seen with all of these people that got them beyond where they were is the belief in something bigger than where they were at the current time, right? And sometimes you just have to go through a rough patch, but you hold on to that belief going through that rough patch, and eventually you come out at the end. Okay. Um, I really want to encourage you all, if you're all in situations similar to prayer, to focus on the big picture. What's the big picture for you? Why are you doing this? Why are you where you are? What really makes it all worthwhile? Because nobody must come along, no situation must come along to divert you from, what your end game is. What is it that you're doing all of this for? You must not get distracted from that. And that's what life is all about. Life is knowing how to deal with the distractions and remaining focused on what the main thing is, keeping the main thing the main thing. You see people come and go, people come and go. But you have to remain focused on why you're doing what you're doing and drive forward with that. Because when you do that, you develop you develop momentum, yes, but you also develop thick skin, you know, where you're not bothered by the trivial things. And people are always gonna come with things and with situations, that urgent and important to them, you know, because the way life is set up is really to test you, to see how serious you are about your goal and your vision. If somebody else's vision or somebody else's goals, um, distracts you, or if you allow yourself to be distracted by other people's goals and visions, and you take the time out from what you're doing to meet their needs, you will suffer a lot. You will lose a lot of time, you will lose resources because you're not remaining focused on what your calling is, on what it is you're supposed to be doing, on what it is you want, and what you want your life to be about. You see, all of this thing that we're talking about, supervisory management and so on, let me tell you something. I don't teach this course because, I want you to stay in your job forever and ever. I don't think that's what this is about. I think when you get a job, it's a means to an end. It's a means to an end. That's what it is. If you think the job is the end in itself, you are missing the point. It's just a means to an end. But here's what I realized: a lot of people who have jobs don't have an end in mind. They don't have a clear picture of what the end is supposed to be. So if the job is a means to an end and you're going to work every day, but you're not exactly sure on, what the end is. In other words, why am I doing this? What is this supposed to be contributing to? Where is this supposed to take me? You know, how does this fit into my goal, my map to get to where I want to go? If that is not clear in my mind, girls, guys, let me tell you something. The years will pass so quick. You will be shocked to know how quickly the years pass, and you'll reach a point and you'll be looking to see what you've achieved. And you will not be where you want to be, and you'll be a very unhappy and unfulfilled person. You might have a family, you might even have a home and so on, but there's going to be something missing inside because you never paid attention to that. What is it all for? What is it all for? You gotta have a vision of where you want to go, and you gotta understand the realities of where you are. When you have that clear, you can then have a map and commit to that map so you can get from where you are to where you want to go. You gotta be clear on where you want to go. That is what supervisory management is all about, It's about fitting you to become the quality of person that will make that happen in quick time for you. How does that benefit your employer? Here's how that benefits your employer, wherever you're working. That benefits them because you become the kind of person that delivers at a higher level because of the quality of your, or not the quality, what we like to call gravitas, because the amount of gravitas that you have, and this really has to do with the quality of person you become, because of the level that you perform at, you become exceptional. You become exceptional. That's what this is all about. Supervisory management, serves you, but in serving you, it serves your employer, it serves the organization. They benefit from the quality of person you become. I tell people this certificate, is not as great as the person you become. Don't get me wrong, certificate is important because it opens doors for you and it gives you new opportunities. But get this, what's going to open more doors for you beyond the certificate is how skillful you are in dealing with all of these situations we talk about. It's how well you are in looking at problems and finding solutions. It's how well you resolve um, conflict and all these things. It's how well you manage yourself and deliver. your ability to get results is what will lift you up above everybody else. That's what I want for each of you. That's what I want for each of you. And every single one of the topics we deal with, is really to refine you to get to that level, to the point where you deliver at high levels. All right. So I understand the challenges everybody's facing, but please put into practice what we've been talking about. See, this thing about personal mastery. Look, if you have to go over that again and study it, please do. Right? And I am available to you all. You can WhatsApp me, you can email me, you can call me. So long as I have the time, I will talk to you and deal with anything that you want help with. Okay. All right. So our time is up. 9 o'clock exact. Next week we are going to get. Oh no, I still have one slide to do on this situational leadership model. We will do that. That'll take like about 10 minutes. It's so long. And next week we're getting into communication effective communication, and I'm going to put all of this together in terms of what we covered, like with mental models. That is going to feature very strongly in communication. I'm going to show you how communication is one of the most profound skills that you can have in taking yourself forward. It is amazing what communication will do, not just in terms of taking yourself forward, in terms of the person you become, in terms of the money you make. That's important, right? So I look forward to that, and um, if nobody has anything that you want to say, class is over. Anybody have any questions to ask? When you ask questions at 9 o'clock, the rest of people will clobber you, right? So just a word. Yeah. But anybody have anything you want to say?
No questions, sir. This was actually a pretty good class.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you saying that. It's the people who contribute that really make it great. Yeah, Rhonda.
Yes, I enjoy it. It really tells the experience of well, I'm working in a same situation like that, but
Yeah.
I'm glad to be in this class to learn more. So I laugh at some of the situations, so I'm glad to be in this class
Yeah,
to
yeah.
learn
I
a
know
lot
a lot of
more.
you could identify with each other because these things are very prevalent. So yeah, sure. All right.